Hello and welcome to Adventures in Venueland, an EVMC podcast. Join us for this all-access pass backstage and behind the scenes with some of the brightest minds that cross the scope of the live event industry. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. We'll introduce you to incredible guests who journey with us as we dive deep into the world of venues, tours, festivals, and everything in between. Grab your laminate and meet us in Venueland.
For today's adventure, we're heading to the center of the basketball universe. From the NBA Finals to WNBA All-Star Week, and we're just talking about the past couple months. Today's guest needs a vacation more than he needs to be talking to us. Please welcome Jeff Johnson. He's the Associate Director with Pacers Sports and Entertainment, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. That title doesn't really do you justice, Jeff. What is it that you do?
Well, it's hard to believe. I've been here 27 years in December. And when I originally started, I strictly did the marketing for the events, but over the years have done the traditional advertising for the Pacers and the Fever. And Dave, just like, what you had mentioned, even within the last, you talked about the last couple of months, if you add the last year, the Pacers were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and we had the NBA All-Star Game. So over the last really year, it's been crazy with two All-Star games, a finals, a Eastern Conference Finals, plus all the other stuff that we have with high school and college.
NCAA, being based out of Indianapolis too. No, it's you guys do a little bit of basketball there. There's a little bit of love for basketball in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but unfortunately, when we were going through the COVID years, it's the only time that the entire NCAA tournament was in one city.
Right.
And back during that time, we had our building, Lucas Oil, and then two other buildings in the city where we actually had every one of the games that were played in Indianapolis. The only reason why we were able to do it, one, because everything was so close, but we had that 6 feet of distance that they were, requesting everybody. And it just worked out perfect. But it's hard to believe that we went through that and all that happened.
Now, you say traditional advertising for the Pacers and Fever. Now, most people listening to this have probably heard about Caitlin Clark, and everyone's going to tell you that Caitlin Clark is the reason that these games are selling out. But I'm here to tell you it's actually Jeff Johnson. I'm kidding.
I wish I could say that. I have never seen anything except for maybe like when LeBron James went from, Cleveland,
sure.
The 3 or 4 places that he's played at. But, we were averaging, actually the first couple of years because of COVID and our building was going through a major renovation. We weren't even really, pushing like the season tickets and everything because we knew it was going to change from year to year to a couple different buildings. And all of a sudden, we went from, 2,000-3,000 fans to the point where we're selling out every game. And I'm talking about just about 18,000 fans a game.
Which is why, and selling out away games, which is crazy. Yeah. Lifting the entire league, really.
That's the thing that we've kind of joked around about here is like almost every game is a home game because, we have a number of games. In fact, almost every one of them is on some kind of a national TV program. And when you watch the games and the people coming into the games and everything, there is a lot of red for Indiana Fever.
Sure.
I was going to ask if are you doing a lot of paid media for the Fever these days? Because has it changed a little bit?
You know what?
Even the Pacers too, for that matter.
A lot less. When the Fever first came, it was a hard sell because you had to promote the game, the promotion. We did a lot of like family nights and different things to draw people there. It's unlike the Pacers where you can take a 5-second commercial and say, Pacers, Lakers, Friday at 7, get your tickets at, pacersbasketball.com. But, since the arrival of Caitlin Clark, everybody knows who the Fever is and haven't had to do nearly as much as what we thought. Now, obviously, like with the All-Star game that was here a couple weeks ago, the game sold out in one day. We did have a
Awesome.
lot of other events that went on in conjunction with that. So obviously we were promoting like a concert that was kind of a combination of musicians and comedy. And then also they had like a fan fest where you could go around and meet different sponsors of the WNBA. So obviously that took a little bit more of a push than,
Yeah.
normally when we were trying to push a game.
That's amazing. And it just seems like they're getting so much attention, rightfully so, on social media and ESPN and everywhere. I just saw the other day, which I thought was the coolest thing ever, is the that they have a Stranger Things inspired jersey that is coming out, which of course Stranger Things set in Hawkins, Indiana. But what a really cool tie-in. I mean, there's just like all kinds of like buzz and energy around the fever, a fever, if you will, around the fever. And I mean, just what an exciting time to have that and have the Pacers, and at the same time that are, doing so well. I mean, that's awesome.
And one thing that I get a kick about with the Fever is for 2 years I had left the market. I'm actually from Indianapolis, but I went to Fargo, North Dakota. And I remember one of my broadcasting instructors told me that if you're doing the blue light specials at Kmart in Fargo, you've hit rock bottom. I was the general manager of a CBA basketball team that I literally started from scratch. And we had to come up with a name, obviously. And the name of the team, of all things, was the Fargo Fever.
Oh,
So this is
nice.
the second Fever that I've had the opportunity to have.
I'm picturing that the Will Ferrell movie, Semi-Pro.
Yep, yep.
The Fargo fever. I thought I detected a little bit of a round O in your accent there, Jeff.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Well, hey, before we get into all some of the fun you had in your other adventures, let me ask you about Gainbridge Fieldhouse because some folks may or may not be as familiar with that. It's gone by a few names. So, talk to me about the building and its history and kind of its place there in Indianapolis.
Well, we've got a very unique building. I mean, everybody that's been here really loves it because one of the things that we try to do, there's basically a slogan that's been used by several people saying in 49 states it's just basketball, but this is Indiana. And one of the things when we started putting the thoughts together on the building was the fact that we wanted to have it look like an old field house because most of the buildings here, a lot of the high schools, in fact, a lot of people don't know this, but at one time, and I'm not sure what the stats are now, but at one time of like the 20 largest high school gymnasiums in the country, 17 of those were in the state of Indiana. And so we wanted to kind of pay tribute to that. And it started off being Conseco Fieldhouse, which was a company that was located
Right,
on
that's
the north
right.
side of town. And then when they changed some of their names and so forth, they went by one of their insurance, I guess, branches, which was Bankers Life Fieldhouse. And we had a 25-year contract with them. And then we went through kind of a renovation project. And at that time, Conseco and Bankers Life were kind of like slowing down a little bit. So that's when Cambridge came in. But one of the things we always wanted to do was to have it, when we first opened up, we had like a bleacher section, which was where our groups were. We didn't have any type of like bright lights or anything. It was a lot of more of like painted kind of billboard type style. A lot of the lighting fixtures and so forth were that of something that you would find in an old field house.
Which is
And
so cool.
obviously, over the years, a lot of things have changed, but the overall, outside look and everything is phenomenal. We've added just a couple of years ago when we finished the renovation, added an outdoor plaza that's got a skating rink. We also have a lot of our kickoff events when we have, or I should say, tip off to be safe. Our tip off events out there. Like when we had the NBA All-Star game, we had the opening night was kind of stuff going on outside. So it's really been fun, especially for me because I started at Market Square Arena and had a chance to come in about a year before this building was finished, and then been a part of that ever since.
It's really such a unique look. To your point, I remember going there for
Yes,
my second EVMC way
my
back
first.
in 2011. Yeah, so maybe you're the reason Dave and I are still involved. We have you to blame, but going into that concourse and just seeing all that brick and the just the cool design of everything, and
The whole
it
vibe of the
does make
building.
it, yeah, just the whole vibe. It makes it stand out from all the rest of the arenas in such a great way, and I just love that about the whole facility.
I think even though we modernized a lot of things, it still has some of that feel. And when we first were opening, Camden Yards in Baltimore was the big thing. So like USA Today and a lot of other publications started calling us the Camden Yards of basketball. And it did have that feel because it was, it's not something that you could put into LA or New York. It had
Sure.
that Midwest type field house effect. And I think that that's one of the reasons why it's been so successful over the years.
It's definitely got a unique feel, and I haven't been in a little while. So tell me about some of those renovations that happened.
Well, I mean, as everybody knows, it's in this business. We're all trying to find different revenues and so forth. And one of the things, like one of the big things that we had is we have really one main entrance, and that's the entry pavilion. And as you come in there, you go up a set of grand staircase. And originally, when you came up the staircases, there were two huge glass display cases that kind of reminded you of an old high school, with the state championship trophies and all that kind of
Sure.
stuff. Well, we had a lot of history with, basketball with before we were in the NBA, we won three ABA championships. And so there was a lot of, again, pain history to the past with the ABA Pacers and the early NBA Pacers. And so that area has been totally cleared out. We now have two bars and kind of a standing room only area. We've taken a lot of storage that used to be available. There's now premium clubs. So a lot of, really the things, just like a lot of people are probably trying to do is find new revenue sources, is to have kind of that premium space is what a lot of people were looking for.
Sure. And what does Indianapolis look like if people haven't been? Obviously you mentioned Lucas Oil Stadium. You've got Ural's Arena. Is it kind of a rich entertainment town? Is there some small clubs? Are there other arenas in the area? What's sort of the lay of the land?
I think that Indiana for the longest time was known as a amateur sports capital of the world because of just a lot of the events. I mean, if you really take a look at it, just recently we had the Brickyard.
Yeah.
We also have the Indianapolis 500, which those are two of the world's largest single day attended events. The Indianapolis 500 will have, three to 400,000 people in one day for a race. We have minor league hockey, minor league, baseball. The Colts, are downtown. We're downtown. There's talks of possibly a MLS soccer team that's coming soon. One of the things that I really enjoy about Indianapolis, I mean, my family we were in Chicago and I moved here when I was a child, but still have a lot of family in the Chicago area. What I think is neat about Indianapolis is once you arrive in the city, you can pretty much walk to a lot of different places because most of it's all confined right in the same area. And you have probably just as much as a Chicago or New York or LA, just not as big or not as many, type things. But just with the history of the Colts have won a Super Bowl, we've won some championships. Again, like I said, if you like racing, you got all kinds of racing. So it's a place that people like to come and really be a part of the event. One of the things, several years ago, the NCAA moved their offices here. So every 5 years we have the NCAA men's championship, and coming up in the near future we have both the men's and all the other divisions of college basketball finals
Oh,
that will
wow.
be here and at Lucas Oil. So I think that that's probably sports is probably the number one thing I would say.
Absolutely.
Jeff, you said you've been there for was it 27 years? Do you remember your very first event at the field house?
Yeah, in fact, it was kind of funny. We had this past weekend, we had Hot Wheels monster trucks, and the person that does the booking for that was my promoter that I worked on the very first show. And it actually, Dave, it's really amazing that I'm still in this business for kind of some of the early things that happened in my career. The very first event that I ever had was the Harlem Globetrotters. And the Globetrotters, we always have like either the first or second weekend in January. Well, I was hired, my very first day on the job 27 years ago was on December 22nd. And then, then we had the holidays and everything. So I had probably gotten in about maybe 3 days of actually being employed when the Globetrotter show came. And I'll never forget, I was upstairs doing something for the show, and I get a call on the radio, and they're like, Jeff, you need to get to the court immediately. And I'm like, okay, like what, what the heck, what do I do? I don't know what's
That's
going
not good.
on.
That's not good.
Yeah. And so I'm like, taking my time getting down there, but thinking, gosh, if they ask me to do something, am I going to be able to help them? And I get down there and they said, well, and this was at one time the Globetrotters, if you bought a front row seat, you also got a jersey with your seat. And so I got down there and they said, Jeff, the jerseys didn't come in. So I'm kind of looking like probably a deer in headlights. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
because
well,
you weren't in charge of that.
yeah. I'm like, well, okay, what does that mean? And they
Yeah.
said, we need to find out who these people are. They're supposed to get jerseys. I'm like, well, how do I do that? They said, well, they're everybody in the front row. So what we need for you to do is to get on all fours and crawl around the court and get names, addresses, shirt sizes, and phone numbers. And then
During the
we'll be able to
game.
mail those out. So
Of course.
that was my very first true event that I ever had.
And you never looked back, right? I mean, that's
Is there any video of this, Jeff? Just curiosity.
I hope not.
today there would be. Today there definitely
Today there
would
would
be.
be.
Exactly. But it was kind of funny because somebody that's in the business now and that's been around for a while, Jennifer Roth Kelly, was the person that was the promoter, and I got to work with her this weekend and hadn't had a chance to really work with her for a while, and she's really active with Hot Wheels now. So
That's
Very
awesome.
very small world that we're in. You did some cool events there over the years, but one I wanted to ask about was some kind of a swimming event.
yeah, actually in October of 2004, we were one of the first events to ever have a swimming event in a non like natatorium type swimming venue, and it was the World Short Course Swimming Championships. Michael Phelps was the big person. In fact, he was supposed to be in like 7 events, like he was in one. But it was really neat because we had 10 days to put the pool together, and it was actually two pools. The actual competition pool was a 50-meter pool, but we also had kind of a warm-up pool that we had to set up as well. But we had 10 days to get that all together, and we had 2 days to get it out before the next event. So
my
it was
gosh.
a real challenge for the facilities people, but it ended up being a really cool event. And one of the things that, when you're talking about like Indianapolis and so forth, the city does things so well because if you're in the city and there's something happening, you're going to know that it's going on. Obviously, it was well decorated throughout, the town. And then also, too, because it was the World Short Course Swimming Championships, rather than playing the national anthem for, the winners, they had the Indianapolis Children's Choir come and learn every national
my
anthem of every country that competed at it. And it was just part of the
Good for them.
That's awesome.
Wow. Did you get a dip? The staff get a swim after it was
Yeah.
all said and done. You guys
Yeah.
get a cool off in the deep end.
We had a lot of people that took advantage of it, but since about all I can do is a doggy paddle, I decided that I'll just dip my feet in and I'll be fine.
Hey, well, you can say you dipped your feet into a pool there. That's something.
Over the years, I know you did you've done a number of press conferences and unique events, but I know there's a story about a press conference you did for NSYNC.
Yeah, this was back almost probably the first or second year that the building was around, and it was when the boy bands were really big time, and we had NSYNC and we had Backstreet Boys, but NSYNC wanted to do something special, so what they did was they had 50 on-air radio winners that had the opportunity to come and do a press conference with the band. And you have to imagine it was 50 winners and one parent that could escort them. So imagine 50 like middle school girls that were here for the press conference. And before
I'd
they
rather
came
not,
in,
actually. That sounds loud and
Oh,
yeah,
stress thinking about it. This is giving me stress. Yes.
well, and it was funny because the publicist came in and he goes, "I need for you to make a couple announcements." I'm like, "Okay, what's that?" He goes, "Well, the first announcement is that nobody can scream when the band comes in."
oh god.
So you have to imagine when the band did
Come
come in,
on.
you had 50 girls with their fist about halfway down their stomach because they were worried that they would scream. And the other rule was that you couldn't ask a question until you were dressed. And so anyway, when the band came in, I mean, they had some great questions. And keep in mind, this is 26 years ago. Like one of the first questions, to Justin Timberlake is, are you really dating Britney Spears? And
Yeah,
how
sure.
did you
Yeah.
guys get together? And when's your
Sure.
next album and stuff like that. But one of the cutest things, and again, it's funny because I would love to sit down with you guys and different people in the building, or in the venue, or in the this world. But I think we could write some really great stories and books about stuff. But there was a little girl in the back of the room, and you could tell that nobody could see her. And she was 4 years old. I went back and talked to her dad afterwards. And she was just jumping up and down and waving her hands and so forth. So I finally looked over at the publicist and I said, "Can you do me a favor? This little girl is just dying to ask a question." He goes, "We'll save her for last." So it comes time. Okay, we got, two more questions, and everybody raises their hand. Finally get to the last question. And the publicist looks out, and this little girl by now is on her dad's shoulders. And the publicist says, "Okay, little girl back there on dad's shoulders, what's your question?" And her eyes got as big as silver dollars. And her teeth started chattering, and she started stuttering so bad. And it was, "Do you like white milk or chocolate milk?" And for a 4-year-old, that was probably a really important question, but
All right.
it was so cute because the guys spent more time answering that question. I don't remember who it was, but one of the guys said, "Gosh, I had a weight problem as a kid, and so mom and dad wouldn't let me have ice cream, so they'd put chocolate in my milk and tell me it was a chocolate milkshake." And all the guys, like I said, probably spent more time answering
That's
that.
great.
And those are the type of things that make it worthwhile, that you want to just keep doing this type of work.
Yeah.
You did. I know you guys did some boxing events there, including a couple of title events with HBO. A story from the Roy Jones Jr. fight.
Yeah, we that was the first fight, and Don King, of course, was the world's greatest promoter when it
You
came to
talk about
boxing.
promoters. He's the top of
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
list.
So we were trying to figure out different things that we could do, and Roy Jones at the time was the pound for pound champion, and at the time that we were getting ready to announce the fight, the NCAA was having their men's finals at Lucas Oil down the street. And if you've ever been, actually, it wasn't, well, it was at that time, it was the RCA Dome, but they had a big, like, steps leading up to the building itself, kind of like if you ever saw Rocky when he was running up the art museum. And so we made arrangements with the NCAA and had Roy Jones Jr. run up the steps and do kind of the Rocky thing. And then we had, and I can't remember what it's called now, but we had 6 guys that carried him on, like what they used to carry the kings and queens around, kind of
Yes.
like
Yeah.
a throne that they
Yep.
would put,
Yep.
the things on their shoulders. And we got the Indianapolis police and fire stations involved. And we actually had a parade through kind of about a 6-block area of downtown, marching Roy Jones Jr. into the building. And then what was funny was the week of the fight, the first day we had the challenger do a little warm up, and we had set up a boxing rink in the middle of our entry pavilion. And we had that up for about 3 or 4 events just to let people know that, boxing was coming. And the first day on Monday, the challenger came and did probably a half an hour workout. We had all these boxing writers and so forth that were there having their lunch and watching it. The next day was supposed to be Roy Jones Jr. Well, we didn't realize that Roy Jones was involved in a lot of other things besides boxing. And one of the things was a rap CD that he was putting together. So when he got there, he probably, shadow boxed for maybe 30 seconds, and then he broke into song for like the next 15 minutes. We lost most of the people before he was done, but it was interesting. And then that entire week we had a ring girl promotion. We had the weigh-ins. We tried to do everything that a Don King fight would be able to do, and it was fun. It was different. I wouldn't want to do it on a regular basis, but to only have to do it twice, it was really a challenge, but yet a fun challenge.
Those boxing events. There was a time when they were the biggest things in the world, and it was fun to be part of that. Getting to do something with Don King, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Hey, you mentioned earlier hosting the NCAA finals during COVID in 2021. That was obviously a weird time for all of us. But what was that like being on the front lines, putting together one of the biggest basketball events in the world?
Well, I mean, we were thrilled to be able to have the honor to do it. And we wouldn't have been able to do it if we didn't have like the state fair here with the Coliseum and, with the Lucas Oil and with our building. The way the NCAA kind of planned everything, how normally you would have like, two games back to back, or maybe even sometimes there's four games that are basically back to back. What they did was they actually alternated the sites. So if you wanted, you could have gone to see four games if you wanted to. You just would have had to drive from game one to game two to another venue. But after the game was over with, I mean, we literally had to go into all the suites, all the seats and everything, and just scrub everything down. We had like, probably about 3 hours in between games where we had to do everything we could to kind of sterilize the building basically. And then the second game would take place at another site, and then the third game would come back to our building. So it was a challenge. And then but plus just trying to keep people 6 feet apart, with the separation. And it's amazing that that we're able to do it and that we're able to have the tournament. But again, something that hopefully we'll never have to see again with
Amen.
especially with COVID.
Yeah, I remember. You remember the days of like showing up for work early because you had to walk and get tested in the parking lot before you head into the building.
Yeah.
Those were crazy times.
And I love, I mean, I wouldn't have stayed here as long as what I have if I didn't, like our management and our ownership and so forth. But we were working from home for, gosh, probably a year. And every week we had a call with management, and they would have different people, like scientists and doctors, and I'll never forget probably one of the second or third calls, as you guys know from being in this business. I mean, we're so used to working with deadlines and on sales and announces and different things that we have to do for shows. And I'll never forget we had a sports psychologist that was on, and he basically said, keep in mind, this is affecting everybody. It's not just affecting you. We don't have any answers, so when you worry about, hey, are we going to be able to have, the Michael Bublé show in 2 months? Nobody's going to know that. And so, just during that time of, trying to keep from going insane and staying healthy and everything, again, having some of the meetings and stuff that we had was great. But and I'm glad that we're past that stage because I know a lot of people were a little, at first cautious about, going to events and everything. And I think now things are hopefully back to normal and everybody is enjoying, the different events. And to me, there's nothing better than going to a concert or a sporting event and forgetting about everything that's going on around the world that, before you came in.
Amen to that. Hey, you mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast, but you hosted the NBA All-Star Game and the WNBA All-Star Game in back-to-back years. Are those events kind of similar, or are you kind of like, are they really different? What's that like to kind of be able to do that back to back?
Somewhat similar, but yet there's a lot of, some things are maybe on a little bit bigger scale than others. We weren't originally supposed to do that. I mean, we actually were supposed to have the NBA All-Star Game in 2001. So we had the opportunity to work on that for 3 years, basically.
2021, yeah.
21, yeah. So it was one of those things where we had the NBA All-Star Game. There wasn't a city assigned yet for the WNBA. And then with the whole Caitlin Clark thing and everything else that was going on, it's like, hey, let's assign, the WNBA to Indianapolis. So it just so happened that's why we got it kind of back to back. But I think if we had our choice, we probably would have liked to have had a little bit of separation between the two.
Yeah, but now I'm sure a lot of people are gonna come knocking to ask you about it, especially with this just it feels like a new era of the WNBA, right? Like more eyes, more popularity than ever. It seems like those all-star games going forward are just gonna be on a different level.
Yeah, and again, that's we're used to hosting the NCAA tournament. We're used to hosting Super Bowls and the 500s and NBA finals and so forth. So I think that once you come to Indianapolis, I mean you've got restaurants, you've got shopping, you've got everything right there, where you don't have to do a lot of transportation and so forth. And I think that a lot of people like being able to keep everything kind of close together and intimate. I know I went to the Super Bowl one year. It was in Miami, and it seemed like you had some stuff in Miami, and then 25 miles up the road in Fort Lauderdale was the game, and you had the concerts here and there. It's that's one thing that this city has a lot going for it is that we can do a lot of different things, and it's in a close proximity to all the other events that are taking place.
Jeff, I didn't know this about you before getting ready for the episode today, and but you got your start kind of like me on air. You were a broadcast professional.
Yeah, I really, my ultimate goal was I was going to be the announcer of Monday Night Football. And then I thought, well, no, maybe I'll be Dave the arena guy. And this guy in Columbus came in and took over. And I said, all right, that's it. I got to change my career. I got to go a different way. But no, I went to Butler here in Indianapolis, and was sports director and had a chance to announce the games. And in fact, one of my experiences there, the very first game I ever announced, this is giving my age away, it was Butler played in Terre Haute against Indiana State when they had Larry Bird, and it was the year that they lost to Michigan State and Magic Johnson. And
Wow, wow.
Butler goes there, and Indiana State's like number two or three in the country at the time. We ended up losing the game 81 to 49, and Bird scored 51 points. So the next day,
Gosh.
um, in the paper, it's Bird 51, Bulldogs 49.
Oh,
Well, when I got interviewed for the job here, there was different people that we had to meet, and one of them was Larry Bird. And I'm thinking, what in the world am I going to talk to Larry Bird about? And so I went in and I'm talking to him, and I was like, Larry, I said, I got to tell you this story. And I mentioned that to him, and typical, Bird, he just went, yeah, I think I had a pretty good day that game.
that's great. That's great. You got out of TV and radio and did some work in clubs, even at a Damon's Steakhouse.
Yeah, for a while I was at that time we had it was called J. Willoughby's. It was based out of Columbus, Ohio. So you're in hometown. It was
Ah.
Park Hotels was what it was, and it was really neat because it gave me an opportunity to use some of the promotions and stuff that I had learned. And it started out being kind of a Las Vegas type lounge, and then eventually became a Damon's Clubhouse, which was what the sports bar was.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was neat because, and I know there used to be one for those people in Columbus, like Owen-Tangy River Road and on
I was
Morris
still. I think
Road.
there's still. I think there. I don't know. Did it close? There was been a Damon's for a really very pretty recently, but
Yeah.
they
But
were huge though for a while.
for a while, I mean, and it was great because they had like a drive-in theater speaker on the tables. And so you could be, watching that Ohio State team there, the Buckeyes, is that who they
Yeah, I
are?
think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could be watching the Hoosiers here in Indiana, but we could be sitting next to each other and watching listening to two totally different games. So it was really, that was kind of gave me a great opportunity and learned a lot of different promotions. And then as I went on to work for other sporting teams and so forth, it's kind of, we always tried to do things kind of a little bit off the wall. And that's where I kind of got that start before I came here.
Yeah. How did you make the leap from working in that Damon's Clubhouse to then working with Indianapolis ice hockey?
Um, Probably a couple things. One, like you mentioned, communications and radio. I was kind of the voice of, all the stuff that took place at Damon's Clubhouse. And I used to do a lot of promotions. In fact, did some stuff with the hockey teams. We did a pacer promotion and so forth. And the president of the Indianapolis Ice happened to come in for a couple events and said, "Hey, we're looking for an announcer." And I had never, I'd done play-by-play with football and basketball and baseball, had never done anything with hockey before, and brought me in. And the first year of the team, I was their PA announcer, and then eventually they hired me on to do promotions and kind of director of corporate sales, and still did, the PA, which was, that was what I really enjoyed probably the most.
That is wild. I
That's
feel like
great.
I'm sitting with two people right now with all this voiceover experience. It's giving me what do you call it? Like I feel like I don't belong in the room with this royalty.
No, you're. So tell me about Indianapolis ice hockey because there I'm guessing you probably got to do you had a little more leeway. You could do some fun stuff. I remember a story about a wedding on ice.
Yeah, the guy that I worked
This wasn't
with,
your wedding, to clarify,
no, it
right?
wasn't, it
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
mine, but it was 20 other couples that got married.
Wow.
Um, the gentleman that was president of the team, in fact, he was had a lot to do with a team that was in Columbus, Ohio afterwards, the Chill, and a guy that I think is now president with the volleyball team in Columbus, Dave Pateson.
Yeah.
Um,
He wrote a great book about his time in minor league hockey that's definitely worth checking out. Dave Pateson, it's there on Amazon. Yeah.
that was something that I was brought up with, and between David and then Ray Compton, who was the president of the team, we used to do some really wacky promotions. And one day it was Valentine's Day, and we're like, okay, what are we going to do for Valentine's Day? Because, most people don't want to go to a hockey game, bring their dates or whatever. So I had a DJ company for a long time and did a lot of weddings and company parties and stuff. And I said, how about doing a wedding on ice? And they're like, who's going to get married at a hockey game? And I said, well, let's just try it out. So what I did was I basically reached out and we asked anybody that was planning on getting married, especially if they're getting married, on Valentine's Day, if they would consider getting married at a hockey game. And we had 20 couples that ended up, and we had a red carpet. We had our youth hockey kids that had their forming an archway with their sticks. And so, the couples
Nice.
came out. We had someone to obviously officiate the wedding. I had a photographer. We had a room where they had a reception where we had a cake. Did the toast, did everything just like if it was a normal wedding, but it was during a hockey game.
That's
All of our
amazing.
concessionaires and all of our staff had T-shirts with the old what looked like a tux
Yep.
T-shirt,
Sure.
so that we were
That's so great.
appropriately dressed for it, and actually had this wedding on ice, and then we drove a limo out onto the ice. And for all those who didn't win the grand prize, they got to stay back for the reception. We had a DJ and cake and punch and so forth. But for one couple won a trip to Las Vegas as part of their honeymoon. So they got into the limo, had a night in a downtown hotel in a suite, and then left the next morning to go to Vegas for a weekend. But one of the key things is they had to have their bags packed. So whichever one of those 20 couples won, they had to be ready to go because as soon as we got through with the ceremony and people started leaving the ice, they jumped in the limo and off they went.
Well, that's great.
If anyone's listening that was in that 20 couples, be sure to write it to
Yeah.
us.
There's something about doing those minor league hockey promotions that teaches you just real creativity, and
Oh, yeah.
you really had some more freedom to play around and do some wacky stuff.
Well, I mean, nothing was really black and white. I mean, everything was just kind of fun. I mean, I then shortly after I left I was there for like 10 years and then I left. And I think I mentioned I went to North Dakota and was general manager of the Fargo Fever. We talk about fun things or memorable things. Probably the worst thing that ever happened to me as far as promotions goes, you have to imagine North Dakota in the middle of the winter. Our opening night, it was 20 below zero with a wind chill factor of about like almost 40 below zero.
This is the Fargo Dome, right?
This is the Fargo Dome.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I one of the things that I wanted to do, they kept telling me, we'll find out if you're riffraff or not because the weather usually scares the riffraff away. So what I wanted to do was to try and get everybody to forget about the cold and 20 below zero. And in January, during our season, I decided to do a summer in January promotion. And there was a local high school group called the Blenders. They're the Blenders, and they were kind of a like Straight No Chaser, or kind of an a cappella group
Sure, sure.
that actually had done a part of a soundtrack for Overboard that Goldie Hawn was in. So we had a post-game concert with them, and at halftime, keep in mind it's 20 below zero, we had a swimsuit fashion show. Well, before the game, the visiting team was leaving their hotel. There's snow probably a foot deep. The roads are slick, and somebody slammed into the back of the visiting team bus.
No.
Every one of the players had to go for some form of whiplash to the hospital.
No.
We had to cancel the game, so I had to get out at center court with all these things planned and telling people that I'm sorry, but the game's going to be postponed.
After they come out through the negative 20-degree temperatures.
And
Exactly.
swimsuits.
I didn't know if we'd be able to, reschedule some of the activities that we had. And then to make things worse, North Dakota State University was in Fargo. And when we went to try and reschedule it, we couldn't get anything scheduled in the Fargo Dome. The visiting team that we were trying to reschedule the game with didn't have any open dates that worked with us. So we actually had to play in a third venue because the first couple of games, the Fargo Dome wasn't ready. So we played in the convention center. Then we moved to the Fargo Dome. And then when we had this, we had to move a game to North Dakota State. So that was, if I ever had a reason why my hair turned gray and lost a bunch of it, was because of that episode right then and
Blame
there.
the cold. It just got
Exactly.
frosty and never went back.
Exactly.
So how did you survive that and make the leap from Fargo back to Indianapolis?
It was one of those things where I knew I'd been there for 2 years. Some opportunities came up with the Pacers, and so I, had the experience, knew most of the people, and was very fortunate because I really wanted to get back home. And so it gave me an opportunity. I came back. I've had opportunities to leave a few times, but it's like, it's hard to turn down. Like I said, we've got great management, great ownership, and so I'm glad that I've made the biggest part of my career right here.
It's very cool. Other than your career, I know you got some fun family you take care of, including your grandkids. Tell us a little bit about Jeff away from the office.
Um, I have always been involved with like youth organizations and so forth, and I actually got married late in life. Actually divorced now, but my wife, ex-wife, and I are best of friends. She had 4 kids that were older. 2 of the kids had already had started their families, and even to this day, we've got 9 grandchildren. I see them on probably every other week basis, getting together. I'm still grandpa to all of them except for the one's only 3 months old, so obviously he doesn't know who I am. But all the rest of them, I've got 2 that's getting ready to go into college, and 3 in high school. But like they have dance recitals and hockey and so forth. And I'm really proud that I've been able to keep a great relationship and then be able to spend time with them. And then I've been involved for a long time with Big Brothers. It's just, that's something that I feel very fortunate because my family allowed me to do a lot of things that a lot of kids don't get the opportunity to do. And I just wanted to kind of pay it forward. If anything, it made me appreciate my parents more by doing that. And just
Sure.
I've been proud that I've been able to.
That's so cool. Hey, I know that we've got stories that we could talk about for days, and some that we probably shouldn't talk about. So we better wrap this up. But before I let you go, I want to hit you with our fast 5. It's just 5 short questions, looking for your short, immediate response. First up, what was your first concert?
I would say Chicago.
Oh, nice.
In Chicago? Was this Chicago in Chicago?
No, yeah, they were probably still what, Chicago Transit Authority or whatever.
CTA, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Do you have a favorite concert?
Um, I would say, having the opportunity to work and be able to stay and see like the McCartney's and probably my
Mm.
favorite artist. I'm kind of a 70s, 80s rocker, so I love Elton John, Billy Joel, that type
Oh yeah.
of music and concerts.
I know you're a big baseball fan. What's one ballpark you haven't been to yet that you would love to go to?
Well, I've been to 26 of the 30.
Wow.
So I was going to go to Houston, but I ended up not being able to work out. But I haven't been to Houston, Oakland, Kansas City, or Tampa Bay. And I had tickets to Tampa Bay a few years ago, and they had sorry to say tornado, had a hurricane, and was unable to go because the game was canceled. But those are the four that I'm still trying to hit.
We're going out to Sacramento next year for EVMC. That's not that far from Oakland. You can check it off your list. And they're playing in Sacramento now,
They'll
right?
soon be,
So,
yeah, they'll soon be moving to Vegas. So I'll probably
oh,
wait until
true.
they make that move.
Hey, what's your favorite sporting moment you've ever seen in person?
I mean, obviously this year had to be one of the exciting things, even though it ended, kind of in tragedy with Halliburton getting hurt.
Sure.
Um, I will have to say, and if we've got 30 seconds, I'll make this quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably one of my greatest sports memories will be the opportunity of working several years with John Wooden. Coach Wooden was one of the nicest, most polite guys I'd ever met. And I've got two real quick stories with him. One was the very first time that I met him, I was sitting off to the side. We were getting ready to announce a double college doubleheader that we're going to have, the Wooden tradition. And Purdue, which is where he went to college, we're going to have Purdue and then three other top rated teams play. And I was sitting off to the side, just Coach Wooden and myself. And Lute Olson was the coach at that time at Arizona. And Gene Cady came up, and they were like, you could tell, like two little kids trying to hurry and talk to Coach Wooden. And Wooden kind of looked at me and he stopped and he goes, "Gentlemen, can you see I'm here talking to this young man?" Says, "Once I get through talking with him, then I'll get with you." And that was one of the things. The other thing that
That's
that
so cool.
will probably make some people cry was the fact that my job whenever he was here was I literally escorted him around from place to place, and he did a lot of interviews and autograph signings and so forth. And we were ESPN had came in, and I had to take him up to the room where ESPN was. And he goes, just stay in here. You're fine. Just stay in here, Jeff. And I'm like, all right. So they're talking, and when it kind of came down to the end of the interview, they said, Coach, you've won, so many consecutive NCAA championships. You've been awarded all kinds of things from presidents. What do you feel is the greatest honor or greatest thrill that you've ever had? And Nellie was his wife's name, and he used to write a note and put it under her pillow long after she had passed away. And she had been deceased for probably, I would say, probably about 8 years. And so he went to answer it, and he goes, "That will be the day that I walked down the aisle and said I do with Nellie." And if you're a family guy, it hits you hard when you hear something like that. That to have that inseparable love and commitment years afterwards. And so I would say, obviously there's, sporting events, it's great, but you don't get an opportunity to, witness something like that and to say that, hey, I, spent a lot of time with Coach Wooden.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Last question for you. What's your theme song? So there's a reality TV show all about the world of Jeff, and cameras follow you around all the time. What's the song that plays over the opening credits of the Jeff Johnson Show?
Ooh, and all those years I used to DJ too. What would be my theme song? Why Can't We Be Friends?
There you go. I love
Great.
it.
Yeah.
Great. Love it.
Jeff, if you have any plugs here, if anybody want to follow or reach out to you, or if they want to follow along with the venue, give us anything you want to plug here.
Well, when you're 97 years old, you don't have a lot of social media. So all I have is Facebook. But obviously, anything with Gamebridge, we're on all the different social media or Pacers.com. Follow us. We have a huge, busy schedule, and love to have people come and see us.
Love that. Hey, Jeff, I've known you, we've been good friends for years, but it was great getting to hear about some of your adventures and learning some new things today. Really appreciate the time.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And a big thanks for everybody for listening to this episode of Adventures in Venueland. Remember, you can subscribe and find more episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We do love your 5-star reviews because it helps other people find us. Until the next adventure, I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. Thanks for listening, everyone. Adventures in Venueland is a side project of the Event and Venue Marketing Conference, a marketing conference that brings together diversified event and venue professionals to cultivate education, collaboration, and innovation for the growing sports and live entertainment industry. Find out more at eventvenuemarketing.com.
Audio editing and mixing by Camille Faulkner.
Design and digital advertising by Megan Ebeck.
Copywriting and publicity by Samantha Marker.
Guest booking and brand strategies by Paul Hooper.
Guest research by Dave Rettelberger.
Marketing strategies by Paul Hooper, Megan Ebeck, and Samantha Marker. Thanks for joining us. Until the next adventure.